Welcome everybody to the Chinchilla Pickin' Podcast. It is June the 22nd, 2025 at 3:37 p.m. As always, we hope to be entertaining, educational, and uplifting because we want everyone to make money. My name is David Underwood, and I'm joined by the Rambo of capitalism himself,
Yes.
Brandon Beaver.
Yes, thank you for cheering me up.
I just did that. I knew you were feeling a little down. I thought, let me get a smile on his face here.
It's just been negative news for the past day, and I'm not taking sides on this. Not what we're about. We're not taking sides politically about what just happened last night. But I was telling Dave, I was like, I'm mostly mad because I have to pay attention to politics now. And for a year, I have not been watching political news, and I've been so at peace with myself.
It is people who watch it daily, just news, any kind of news daily, tend to be less happy in general
Yeah,
versus
yeah, because
less happier. I forget how to word out the terminology, but uh, less happy than other people who don't.
it's anxiety inducing, right?
Yeah, I don't. The only thing I watch is CNBC or Bloomberg, stock news, and if it starts getting too political, I just turn it off because I don't need that in my life.
See, I mean, for
Um,
me, like it's going to affect markets in ways that mostly for me, it's going to make buying opportunities, right? But I've got friends and
in
family.
low places.
I've got friends and family with relatives in both countries that are still
Okay.
there. So, for my friend, actually, it's friends with relatives in Iran and then family with relatives in Israel. So it is for me, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh man, I hate that
Right.
this is how we solve our problems as a globe.
Yeah.
But
Well, we're going to eventually get into. Other than that, there is a heat wave going across the United States right now, and it's heading very high. It's a mid to upper 90s everywhere across the United States. Brandon, what does that mean for the energy sector? What does that mean for if there was no other news right now other than earnings reports or this heat wave? How would people be trading a heat wave, or would you
well,
even trade a heat wave?
generally in the summer, gas prices go up because people take those vacations out to the beach. But I don't know the heat wave. What would you say about trade? Because I don't normally trade commodities.
Right? So it's not a commodity type deal. Usually, oil trades typically on a typical year, a non-war year. They will typically trade based off of travel. Travel and leisure
Yeah.
really dictates a lot of it. Business, how much shipping are we doing versus usual? The heat really doesn't have much to it. I mean, when I think about it, electricity bill is going to go up. And right now, the cost of producing electricity is higher nationwide, which is actually going to cut into the consumers, directly cut into the consumer bottom line. So their spending is going to go down due to higher
You think
energy
so?
costs. I read an article the other day. I believe there was a 20% rise across the board in all home residential electric
Ooh.
costs.
I mean, my electric cost has actually gone down, and generally my electricity is higher in the winter when things are colder because I have to run the heat so high with gas.
Uh,
But my electricity bill was like record low
what do
this
you,
year.
hey, what do you set your thermostat at in the winter?
67. 67 all year is where
Oh,
we're at.
really? I
Yeah.
set mine at 65 in the winter. In the summer, I'd set at 69. So, all right. Fair enough. Well, we're going to get into some
This is
investment
a
news.
family friendly podcast, Dave.
Huh?
Nothing.
Okay. Right. Here we go. Investment news. So rules. Brandon and I get together 5 to 10 minutes before the show and we tell each other what we're going to talk about. You hear the lie back and forth, the bicker and the banter right here on the show for you. So I'm actually going to start things off because we talked about this. I have a few articles on the subject. Brandon has one or two different thoughts on the subject. We're going to get into this one first, and then we'll get into more in depth analysis of actual stocks and companies and everything else. So, we're going to talk briefly about the Middle East conflict right now and how that affects what we invest in, markets as a whole, maybe even your 401k or your IRA come Monday morning, right?
Yeah.
What does this all mean for me? That's what a lot of people right now are worried about because they feel like, maybe the worst is over. Okay, how is this going to affect everything else? So first things first, first thing that comes to people's mind is oil, right? That's, number one, Middle East. We hear something going off there. Oil prices are going to go up. Everybody is concerned that we're going to have extremely high oil prices. Well, as of right now, the current oil price in the commodities markets is $74 a barrel. So let me give you some kind of a retrospect. In the past 4 years, the peak of the price of barrel of oil happened in June of 2022 and it hit $118 a barrel. So we're at $74 a barrel right now. So we're in pretty good shape. Even if it jumps $5 to $10 a barrel, we're still in very good
Yeah.
shape not to see too much pain at the pump, if you will, as an average consumer. So I would not personally make any trades based off of a knee-jerk reaction Monday morning and the price of oil jumps $5 a barrel. Because I believe personally it's eventually going to come back down after everybody has time to digest news. So price of barrel oil, Brandon, thoughts on that first before we get into anything else.
It depends on if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, which
Okay,
it
so that's a
looks like
different
they're going to.
topic.
It
That
is, but I mean, just as far as like the reasoning for the price jump,
okay,
and it
so
looks
let's
like they're
get
going to do that.
go ahead.
It looks like they're gonna.
All right, so here is what we a couple different scenarios with the Strait of Hormuz and what's going to go on there. You're not the first person to bring this up to me today alone, Brandon. It's been brought up multiple times. So a lot of different opinions on this. So the Houthi threat. This is a quote from an article in CNBC that actually came out today, and the headline of the article is "Shipping Threats Around Arabian Peninsula Rising." Largest global ship owners organization warns. Right. So in the article, it talks about the Houthi threat against shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden has gone up. The Houthis now threaten merchant ships' affiliation to Israel or the U.S., but attacks against merchant ships of other affiliations are not to be ruled out at the moment. Um, as of this morning at 10:02 a.m. Eastern Time, the Strait of Hormuz is open. We are currently still crossing the Strait of Hormuz. The alert level is high, though, but things are currently moving along smooth with no fine. That's a quote from Hapag Lloyd. He's a spokesperson with the shipping giant Maersk, Maersk. So they do have an alert level high, but they are still moving through as normal through the Strait of Hormuz. Nothing is happening. They did say that things might change by the hour. They're continuing to watch these things. There was a cargo facility at Haifa, Israel, 4.2 billion cargo facility that was owned by the Adani Group that was a target of strikes but did not hit. Um, there could be more sea mines laid out as another way to deter shipping through there. That Iran could distribute sea mines throughout the area there. So if the Strait of Hormuz actually shuts down, it moves an average of 20.9 million barrels per day of oil through that shipping channel. So that accounts for about 20% of global petroleum liquid consumptions through that shipping channel. Uh, is this a possibility? Yes. Do I believe that Iran is going to pursue that possibility? My personal belief is no, because if you stop the shipping of 20% of the world's petroleum, you're not just hurting the United States and Israel, you're really irritating the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you don't want to do that because if people are undecided about where to vote, not vote on, let's say, a UN security panel or a UN vote, and they're kind of undecided, and you shut down the Strait of Hormuz, I think they now know where they're voting. And
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if it's just a threat. They said this morning that they're moving to do it right now, but we'll see if it's a threat. If they do,
so
then I mean, you've got ExxonMobil, Chevron, Valero Energy, Marathon Petroleum. The stocks are going to go up.
so here's the thing. I'm not betting on that. I would not. by these oil companies, expecting the price of oil to go up and the oil companies to go up in regards. I do not believe Iran is going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. If they do, I do not believe it will be for very long, and here's why. And I'm looking at this straight from an investment perspective. Iran has no control over its air skies right now. Their fighter jets have been completely decimated. They still have some, but they've been decimated. Their surface to air missiles has been cut in half. As far as their known ballistic missiles, they have shot half of them already. So that means half them are depleted just by shooting them. And Israel has claimed they have shot up a big portion of the rest of them. So as far as Iran's actual firepower, it's negligible. The Navy does have the power to shut it down, but for how long before a U.S. carrier group can go in
Yeah,
there and relieve it?
yeah.
And
And I,
without any surface-to-air missiles, without any fighter jets to back up the Iran's Navy, it's not going to hold.
yeah, and I would warn against chasing the dragon anyways, because Monday morning the worst is probably going to get priced in, and these stocks are probably going to gap up anyways.
At 6 a.m. in the morning Eastern time, before anybody retail trader has a
Right.
chance to buy.
Because of all of the limit orders that are being placed right now by the whales, most likely. Well, I mean, we'll see
Yeah.
how the futures look at 8 p.m. tonight, I think it is Eastern when they open up.
Right.
But yeah, that it's probably already going to get priced in like that
And
tomorrow.
with the Genius Act passing the Senate, and it's probably going to pass the House with some additives put in there to combine the two bills. I believe, Brandon, that we are one step closer to 24/7 actual trading, um, using stable coins as the basis for the 24/7 for moving U.S. currency, fiat
Yeah,
currency back and
yeah,
forth
probably. Do
quickly.
you think that's going to
Yep.
happen in the stock market too?
Yes.
I
I
don't know
mean,
if I like that anymore.
crypto is 24/7 already, but I believe that because using stable coins, and the fact that funds can settle immediately within seconds or minutes worldwide, bank to bank, however you want to do it, using stable coins to move fiat currency, then that can make stock trading
Yeah.
24/7.
Well, see, the thing for me is that like I've gotten to the point where I like my breaks. And I like to take that second. And honestly, like Saturdays and Sundays, when the market noise is almost gone, that's where I do most of my research. So kind of like that, but I could adjust if it happens that way. I could
You
adjust.
could still take your 2 days. You
Yeah,
don't
you
need to
could.
change that. You just
Yeah,
don't have to trade. It's there's no rule saying, okay, cryptos are available for trading on Saturday. I got to trade. No, you don't.
yeah, and
Take
it's
some. It's having balance in life. I can't just be 24/7 stocks and investments.
right,
I miss
right.
some things. Like I missed the IPO Circle Internet Group. Okay, I'm doing financially fine. I'm not hurting because of that. But do I wish I would have caught that? Yeah. Am I going to catch every news that comes through the wire? Am I going to catch every IPO, every merger?
Yeah,
No, you're
and
not.
and because what me and you talked about prior to this, all the money that I put into the brokerage account in April, I'm managing a much larger portfolio now than I was just even 3 months ago. And it is kind of taking a lot of intensive research, but I like this. So a lot of people might not. And I take about an hour every night and almost every day, almost all day Sunday. But it's a hobby for me, so it is
Yeah.
fine,
I
But
enjoy it. Yeah. I enjoy reading the articles, the analyst reports, the breaking down an earnings sheet and reading through it and kind of
yeah,
seeing, okay, what's their liability, where their liabilities at, what's their assets, how much debt do they owe here, yada yada
I
yada.
love
I
it.
enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm almost I understand why we're talking about this Iran podcast on the podcast Iran situation. People need to know what's going to happen. People need to be able to protect their
Yes.
income and their money. I hate it at the same time because
Yeah.
while we're talking about making money off of this or protecting our money on it, people are dying. And that part
Yes.
sucks.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this. I don't think I'd chase the dragon tomorrow because I think everything is going to happen where the worst gets priced in right away.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And maybe you can explain this to the listeners because you used to work in commercial transportation here in the United States.
Yes.
If you can explain what a spot rate is after I cover this real quick. So, freight intelligence firm Zanisha said average spot rates have increased 55% month over month. And this is for shipping around the Arabian Persian Gulf area and through the
Yeah.
Strait. Rates are now $2,761 per 40-foot equivalent unit, a standard unit for measuring capacity of container ships and volume of cargo. On the tanker side, spot rates for large crude carrier voyages between Middle East and China are up 154% week over week through Thursday. From the Middle East to Japan, they're up 148%. And Middle East, and that's for long range tankers. And Middle East to Japan, very large gas carrier rates, so liquid gas, are up 33% on spot rates. So,
Yeah,
what's a spot rate? What does that mean?
spot rate is a negotiated rate between a freight broker and a carrier, or a carrier and a customer if they're going directly to the carrier. And it's kind of an average of what those rates are looking like across the board. There's different websites that keep track of those things. So they could show you what you're expected to have to pay for your shipment versus what people are trying to pay for them and things like that. So it's almost like a stock market. There's a bid and an ask almost on it, kind of, and then there's
Nice.
an in between. So you can kind of see where things are going with that. Um, on your overseas over air shipments in particular are probably going to be what's affected by this. I also think that gold's going to go up tomorrow. I almost sold Newmont last week because I've got a decent gain on it. I'm glad I didn't. I might sell it this week because
I
I think
tell you
Newmont's
what,
going to go.
I bought I bought a gold coin a couple years back, and I'm doing well just on that solid gold coin I have. The price of gold has gone up. I have a lot of silver. I got
You
some
know what you
gold.
should do? You should take it and just like flick it in the air like Scrooge McDuck.
I don't have a lot. Like I could swim in it or nothing. I got a, it's like, man, well, I had some, will to me, by my grandfather. And then I went ahead and said, you know what, this might be a good investment at some point. And so I went ahead and started buying some, coins whenever I had some money in order to buy some coins. And I tell you what, that ROI on those have been fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and you're probably at the point right now, if it's been years and years and years, where you could take it over to a pawn shop and still make money on it, probably.
Right? I'll tell you. All right. So the last thing I'm going to say on the for investment on this conflict is Tel Aviv stock market is all positive, all green. It is
Yeah,
moving up today. They're very happy over there. Insurance rates on tankers and carriers around the area though are up 55% week over week. They're looking for insurance on their tankers. So those are how it's going to affect. So shipping might go up. Shipping will go up because they got to pass that price along somewhere. And so those are some of the effects. But am
yeah.
I buying or selling based off any of this? No.
Israeli stocks have been up every day for the past week. Bombs are like the weather to them. It's like a hurricane or a tornado here. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Yeah, and yeah, yeah. All right, Brandon. What do you say we take a hard transition here and we switch back into actual stock companies and news of the day for
Well,
investing,
let me
and you
just,
take over because I know you got one.
yeah, so, well, I want to talk about still just a little bit about the war. I expect Palo Alto Networks to benefit. I expect CrowdStrike to benefit. Um, Gold and mining stocks, you know my pick, Newmont Corporation. ExxonMobil, Chevron, Marathon Petroleum, those are probably all going to go higher. What I do want to say,
I don't know about
the
it. I really don't.
last the last time Israel and Iran, when Israel announced their strikes, Nvidia went down 2.9%. Nvidia being a leader in artificial intelligence, specifically their sovereign AI initiatives with countries like Saudi Arabia and France and the United States and the UK, that's a buying opportunity. So if we see a hard sell on Nvidia this week, and it probably will go down, that is your opportunity to buy more because this is unfortunately going to be a money-making event for Nvidia and Palantir, by the way. I think Palantir is probably going to go higher on this, but if it sells off, another chance to buy.
There you go.
Huh,
Brandon making calls. Love it.
hard turn. Hard turn.
Hard
Fan
turn.
of these.
Hard turn.
So last week we covered Nvidia's conference on artificial intelligence. This week I want to talk about AMD because I think it was the same day actually that they did this on June 12th. They had their artificial intelligence summit conference, whatever. And at the heart of the hardware announcements last week or 2 weeks ago, they talked about their latest generation of specialized chips, the Instinct MI350 series. That's their new generation of chips that are being announced. The thing that I noticed about this, first of all, they touted their partnerships with companies like Oracle. Oracle, for example, they're scaling up to 131,072 MI35 355X GPUs. That's a lot. So that's good for AMD. They've also now got partnerships with Meta, with Llama. Um, and they're really starting to focus more on the small to medium level companies and artificial intelligence. The big inference AI is being left to Nvidia. They're not going to compete on the large scale artificial intelligence. They want to go small to medium and they want to take market share with companies that are looking at buying at a discount and put price pressures in that area and let Nvidia keep the bigger guys. That's AMD's um, how do you say strategy. That's their strategy. And another thing kind of that they're looking at doing right now is when you look at Nvidia is much a closed model ecosystem. There's a lot of cost to move out of that ecosystem. There's a lot of cost to use other vendors and things like that. With AMD, much more open source. So I kind of compare AMD to Google when it comes to like phones or to Windows Media PCs when it comes to computers. And then Nvidia is kind of like the Apple with the closed ecosystem, right? Um, AMD is aggressively building that ecosystem. It's called ROCM. This open approach is designed to attract developers and partners. Um, the fact that AI players like OpenAI, Meta, Microsoft are now using these chips for training, it's kind of a strong validation of that strategy. And I think honestly, there's room for both Nvidia and AMD in this field. And it'll be a test of Nvidia to see if their vendors, if their customers are happy enough to stay within that ecosystem and say, we love it, this is our home. Now, both, let's do a comparison AMD versus Nvidia. This is almost like the Coke and Pepsi wars of our time right now.
Are they comparable though? I want to hear this. I'm because I don't think they are, but go ahead.
They're trying to be. So, in the small and medium sized businesses and AI infrastructure and stuff like that, they are. They're direct competitors now. But there some differences here when it comes to their stock valuations. So Nvidia versus AMD. AMD aggressively building its ecosystem ROCM. Nvidia's had CUDA. They've got a very large head start on CUDA. CUDA and the software market for AI currently has an 80% market share. So a very big head start here. And they've got a powerful lock-in effect. Like I said, they're kind of like Apple in that situation. Um, but is AMD investable? I think media in the medium term, yeah. I think long term, yeah, even maybe. But I'm not buying it, and I want to tell you why. I started looking into the stocks. The depth is fine for both these companies. It's very low depth to equity ratio on both. Uh, Then I looked at the return on equity, and something very curious popped out to me here. So, Nvidia's return on equity, it's an exceptional 106%. AMD, it's 3.89% return on equity. And I thought to myself, why is that? And I found, first of all, that AMD between 2020 and 2021, and then 2022, again, they sold some shares out onto the market. That affects return on equity. It affects your shareholder equity. Um, and then after that, it kind of stayed flat. So that's not really the reason, though, because the ROE, that's a year over year, right? So from 2024 to now, still about flat, 1.62 billion shares outstanding. I looked at the net profit margin. Net profit margin for AMD is about 52%. That's nice. Um, I think Nvidia was around 75%, somewhere around there. Incredible. So that explains why Nvidia's ROE, partially at least, is so much higher, but it does not explain yet why we're looking at such a low return on equity for AMD. AMD, I was drilling down into this and their asset utilization. What that is it is a their assets divided by their income. And what that does is that tells you how much money they're making for the assets that they have on site. Are they utilizing their things efficiently to create money? The answer is no. So, Nvidia's asset turnover is 1.44. That's vastly superior to AMD's ratio of 0.39. What this does is this indicates that Nvidia is generating significantly more revenue for every dollar of assets it employs. This reflects greater operational efficiency with Nvidia and faster revenue scaling. That's important to maintain a competitive edge. How efficiently are you spending your money? For AMD, it seems like not so much. In the middle of this research, I found out that they sold off their manufacturing. Go ahead, Dave. You talk first.
All
Say
right.
something.
So I do want to say something here real quick. So this might be some of the reasons why I just read an article this past week and I shared it in our group chat. And some major American CEOs, Jeff Bezos, another one from I believe what wasn't it Shopify, I believe, or some other companies across the United States are telling that they've been cutting jobs due to AI in order to become more efficient. And when people are asking for a higher headcount, they will. This is a direct quote from the article. Sorry, they were saying you need to, and this is what they're telling their employees when they ask for a higher headcount, their department heads. You need to prove to us first that you can't do more with AI in your department before we will even discuss a higher headcount. And as a direct quote from one of these CEOs at these companies nowadays. And so, yes, they recognize they are not being efficient with staffing, with using technology, with becoming more nimble, and so they recognize they need to do that. I think they're going about it in a very harsh manner, but if it, I guess if it works, it works, right?
It does. It's unfortunate, but listen, if we're all going to get laid off to AI, you might as well own the stock and make some money off of it. Just saying.
that's that's true. That's true.
Oh my goodness. One thing that I discovered in my research here in May, they announced that they're selling their assets to Samina. Not all of their assets. It's just the assets utilized to manufacture and make some of the equipment that is used to manufacture the semiconductor chips and things like that. This is actually going to double Samina's earnings over the next 3 years and their revenue. My problem with Samina is that their gross profit margin is 8% and their net profit margin's around 3%. So I have to see increases there before I buy into it. It's got a price to earnings ratio. Forward PE is like 15. I think it's a 15. and trailing PE is like 20. So it's not bad. It's not overvalued by any means. But at the same time, that 3% profit margin, global supply disruptions happen, especially when you have geopolitical wars going on. And that could eat into that very fast. So
Yeah,
now,
it can definitely eat into it very, very, very fast.
now Samina provides end-to-end solutions. So what that means is they manufacture these machines, they maintain the machines for their customers, um, from start of life to end of life. And one thing that's going to massively help them with this acquisition, they've also signed a exclusive partnership with AMD. So they're going to be servicing AMD's, machinery, and they're going to be manufacturing the machinery almost exclusively. So that's also good. But I want to see what happens to the profit margin first before I act on this because that's low.
Gotcha. Yeah,
And I don't
yeah.
like the return on equity for AMD either. So personally, I'm not buying AMD, but if people wanted to, go in a little bit, tip their toes into it, I'd be fine with it.
I don't mind a low profit margin if you have shown a history of consistent, steady, high volume,
Yeah,
such as Walmart. I'll use that as an example.
I think there's close to $7 billion of sales to Samina. So I'm surprised they're not talked about more than what they are. They're a relatively big company.
Gotcha.
Um, the road, by the way, I want to say this too. The return on equity analysis that I just did is it's called a DuPont analysis. If anybody wants to look it up, that's what analysts usually do when they're looking at an ROE and they're trying to determine why it's so low or why it's so high. They do a DuPont analysis on it. They look at net profit margin, financial leverage, and asset utilization. And the depth is good for both these companies. The profit margins for AMD and Nvidia are both great, but it's that asset utilization that's wearing AMD down. It looks like, at least to my eyes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So are you AMD buy, sell, neither
You know
watching?
what? I think if you've got the extra money, if you're already in Nvidia, because Nvidia is the buy. If you already own Nvidia, then owning AMD, it's like buying Pepsi and Coke in the 90s.
Which Buffett did.
Owning both. Yeah.
Yeah, Buffett owned both for a long while.
Yeah.
He owned almost 5% of both companies, didn't he?
I think he did.
Yeah.
I don't think he owns Pepsi anymore, though.
No, he sold Pepsi. He kept
Yeah.
Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he bought Coke during the new Coke situation in the 80s. That big failure.
I remember that. I remember
Yeah.
yes.
I
And
don't
then they
know
had
that
classic
AMD
Coke. They had to
can.
come back with classic Coke. So so are you done? Are we ready to move on to our next topic?
Yeah, yeah. We're
Okay.
good.
All right. So let me move on to the next one. I have two things I want to cover real quick. These should only take a few minutes each, but they're very important. And one of them is very, very interesting as far as a move in U.S. companies. And this is specifically um, banking and real estate companies. But we're going to get to this other news first. And I was telling Brandon, I was mentioning this before the show that I think the algorithms and all my how I search and research stuff is now just pulling up weight loss drugs now, thinking that this is all I look at. But I do have an article here about Novo Nordisk, and it's very interesting. It's not just about this; it has affected the other companies, specifically one I did a call on last week. But this one came out today, 9:02 a.m., written by Dina Beasley on the Reuters Newswires. The headline reads, Data on Novo Nordisk experimental weight loss drug shows mostly mild side effects. You would think that's a good thing, but let's get into the numbers. So the weight loss drug they're talking about is CagriSema. And this is, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I may not be, but it's a new weight loss drug for Novo Nordisk. The company had previously announced top line results for the 68-week study, which found that CagriSema led to nearly 23% weight loss from overweight or obese adults. while overweight type 2 diabetes lost nearly 16% of the weight. Those results, however, disappointed investors, and there's a good reason for that, Brandon. These are phase 3 trials, so the next step is actually to get approved by the FDA. But in the obesity trial, 79.6% of CagriSema patients had mainly transient or mild to moderate gastrointestinal side effects such as nausea, vomiting, and constipation, so on and so forth, right? So not that bad, kind of right in line where they thought.
Hmm.
Even the doctor said everything was in line with what we expected. Dr. Melanie Davis, she was the lead investigator on this. The hemoglobin or sugar levels of 6.5% or less was in the 75% of the time for CagriSema group and 15.9% placebo group. Everything's in line. Everything was great. So why is this not good news? Well, Eli Lilly's trizepatide, it's sold under the brand name Zepbound for weight loss that's currently on the market. That works by stimulating GLP-1 along with a second gut hormone called GIP. This has shown to help obese and overweight adults lose 22% of the weight over 72 weeks. So you're already losing 22% of your weight
Oh,
over
wow.
72 weeks with a drug that's currently on the market. And that is the best one that's currently out there for individuals who are looking just for weight loss. So this new drug by Novo Nordisk is really not pushing any needles whatsoever. Is nothing that's really going to transform the industry. It's not a better improved Ozempic. It's not a better improved Zepbound or anything else along those lines. It's just another one to add to the list if you so choose, which is a good news for companies like the company I mentioned last week, Metsera, which is having tremendous results, which is, I mentioned last week, a 7.8% weight loss in just 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And so Metsera is looking to be even better and transform the industry versus Zepbound. This one from CagriSema for Novo Nordisk is not looking as no good news for Novo Nordisk. This is why I sold last year, I think it was early to mid last year, Brandon. I can't remember exactly when I said I'm selling, but there was too many headwinds. They didn't have anything new coming out. They did have Ozempic. It's going to continue to provide revenue and income, but they got to come up with something new
Right.
um, in order to keep this company. You can't just be a one trick pony of a pharmaceutical brand. You got to always have a pipeline of things coming up. And right now, Novo Nordisk doesn't have anything spectacular coming out. They're staying with the weight loss, which is fine. There's always going to be a need for weight loss as of right now, so that's going to be a money maker. But they got to push it somewhere or find new ways of doing this, and they're not
See,
doing a good job of it.
we discussed this before the show, but I'll bring it up now. This is why I can't do pharmaceuticals. And you're good at it, which is awesome. And you trade, which is awesome
Right?
too.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of money that's got to go into the research and development, and there's a lot of money that's got to go into getting these past the FDA and all the different tests that they have to do. And then after that, we got to make sure that it's going to bring in more profit and more revenue and growth. We need growth. This is
Yes.
Wall Street, you know?
Yes.
So unless you're going to pay a 10% dividend every year, you got to have growth.
Right. Yeah,
So,
and so more bad. Here's what I say: it's more bad news for Novo Nordisk. The only good news is the CVS move that's come in July 1st, where you're going to have to, if you are currently on Zepbound and your insurance is through CVS, which affects millions of people, by the way, you're going to have to switch to Ozempic unless you could get a certain cause or reason why you need to stay on Zepbound.
right.
That's the only positive news I've seen lately for Novo Nordisk. Well, that and the fact that the compounding companies had to stop, but that's already taken place, and that should have already been built into the move up that they had because they were around $60 a share. They're up to like 80, so I believe that's already built in. The compounding is already built in. The CVS move, I believe, is already built in. I don't see much move after this. I think they stay around right where they're at.
I agree.
So. All right, let's move into the next one. And this one I said was interesting. I did not know this news, and like I said, Brandon and I are just two individuals. We don't have we're not a financial investment bank. We don't have a whole team of people that look into certain areas of finances or banking sectors or stocks. There's just two of us, right?
Yeah.
And we were busy guys. So, we have lives. And so we don't have all the time in the world to sit here and look into things. But I did find this and I found this very interesting. So I wanted to share it. This came out literally at about 2:30 p.m. today. The headline reads: Bank of New York Mellon approached Northern Trust to discuss a potential merger. Not necessarily big news there. Bank mergers happen all the time. Bank of New York Mellon, they do handle a lot of business for companies such as employee stock purchase discounts, employee 401ks. They do a few of those, but they also specialize in real estate and real estate specifically in New York City or New York area. Northern Trust, I don't know much about Northern Trust, however. And the only reason I know this about Bank of New York Mellon is I used to trade them way back in the day. And so this is why I know what I know about Bank of New York Mellon. If you trade stocks for any length of period of time, such as long as Brandon and I have, you eventually come across companies that you've already traded before. Again, eventually they circle back around. However, let's go into this a little bit. Bank of New York Mellon has a market cap of 65.55 billion, while Northern Trust has a market cap of 21.676 billion. So the combination should make it, a decent sized company. Still not a large, by any means of a sort, a no Goldman Sachs, no JP Morgan here. But here's what I found interesting. In May, Bank of New York Mellon received a license to set up a regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia, joining other banks lured by incentives as the kingdom sets to boost its appeal as a financial hub globally. Bank of New York Mellon declined to comment, and Northern Trust also declined to comment on the merger and the fact that they're setting up their regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia. So that makes me question. And because I only found this out about 45 minutes before the show, I did not have time to research, Brandon, but I'm going to this week. How many other companies are building and putting into this regional financial hub in Saudi Arabia and building like a Wall Street, if you will, in Saudi Arabia? And how many, what kind of breaks or licenses or any kind of financial incentives are they getting? Is my question.
There's massive amounts of investment, not only from banks. Nvidia just announced, their partnership and sending a lot of chips over there and GPUs, entertainment, uh, WWE has got a big partnership with Saudi Arabia. Um, I don't know how many people know this, but Bank of New York Mellon, that was a merger between two of the oldest banks on Wall Street. The Bank of New York was founded in 1784 by Alexander Hamilton. Mellon Financial was formed in 1869, and they both merged in 2007. There's some
Right.
interesting history there.
Yeah, so if you've watched a Hamilton musical, you know of Alexander Hamilton. Um, and so it is interesting, this merger. It's not a big merger, like I said, but it's an interesting one because Bank of New York does have a lot of real estate on their portfolio, especially specifically in New York City. So something I'm looking at, something I'm watching. All right, Brandon, it is that time of the show. It is final thoughts. Go ahead, head us with it.
Whatever happens with this war, it's likely going to be temporary. I mean, it's just a buying opportunity for me. I do think that this is, a lot of people are looking at this and saying, well, this kind of throws a wrench in the plans to lower interest rates. I'm not sure that it does. I don't know. I don't know that the Federal Reserve is going to look at this and take it into account or not. We were planning on rate decreases as early as possibly even July. I don't know that that's going to happen now. But again, this isn't a reason to sell Microsoft or Nvidia. It's just not. So, whatever happens in the next week, if this market sells off, um, I think that's a buying opportunity. NASDAQ sold off around 11% the last time a major war happened. So,
There you go.
yeah.
I will say that crude oil futures on Friday were at $74 a barrel. They're currently sitting at for Whitty, West Texas intermediate crude is at $76 a barrel, so $2 a barrel spike in futures. A lot less than the 5 to 10 I was saying were possible.
Right.
But again, we still have overnight into Monday morning, so we could still see that 5 to 10 range. As long as it stays within that range, I'm not concerned. I believe it will come back down. Uh, so I'm not doing any investments based off of this news. I do like I don't believe any of my investments that I currently own are going to be hurt based off this news either. So I'm just, it's not changing anything I do currently.
Sure.
I will say cryptos are dropping right now. And the only reason I bring those up is, it's a way to track movements over the weekend because they're traded 24/7. And so it's a way to see if there is any kind of movement we can expect. You could look at cryptos, kind of get a forewarning that Bitcoin has dropped down to like 98,000 a coin right now, but you know, who knows.
So that probably says what's going to happen to the NASDAQ tomorrow.
Right. And that's the correlation that we're looking for. So, all right. Well, as always, we hope that we have been entertaining, educational, and uplifting because we want everyone to make money. Have a good night.
Have a good night.